at something on designing of training programs. And I'm coming now so that we can together discuss on how to prepare a training budget. Of course, I know the whole program is about training of trainers. And I know, as has been mentioned before, even when you looked at the principles that guides how to do training of trainers, it must have come very clearly to you that when you are training adults, you must be very keen, ensure that everything runs smoothly. Remember, these are adults who can be highly inconvenienced by lack of certain things. And it's for that reason then that when you are doing your budget, then you need to, of course, understand the program very well so that all the items that are required are captured when you are preparing that budget. So I'll give you, I think I'll try to project the presentation, then we can quickly run over it. I don't intend to take more than 1 hour of this, because ideally online learning should not take so much time because it lacks certain elements of training that makes it more convenient to have longer hours. And therefore you find that we would want to not have very long presentations. The idea here is, again, not to make it also so difficult for you. So I'll switch off my video, but then I'll be trying to see whether I can put my presentation. Let's see. So can you see my presentation? Are you able to see my presentation?
No.
Yes.
Not yet, sir.
Not yet.
Not yet.
Yes.
Not
I
yet.
can hear.
I can see them.
You can now see it.
Or you can't see it?
You can see it now.
You can see it now?
Yes, training budget.
Okay. So that is our presentation this morning. And when you talk about, I know you have gone through training. You understand what training is all about. I have given there a definition of training, that it is the action of teaching a person or even an animal a particular skill or type of behavior. And we sometimes talk about in-service training for staff. It is a learning process that involves the acquisition of knowledge, sharpening of skills, concepts, rules, or changing of attitudes and behaviors to enhance the performance of employee. So training is activity leading to skilled behavior. I think you have, most likely you have gone through that. You have been told that training is about knowing where you stand, no matter how good or bad the current situation looks at present, and where you will be after some point of time. Therefore, training is about the acquisition of knowledge, skills, and abilities. No, somebody must have taken you through that. It's the process of bringing a person, or etc., etc., to an agreed standard of proficiency, etc., by practice and instructions. Like when you talk about training for the priesthood, physical training. Yeah, but our discussion this morning is about the budget. And the budget, as probably you people are aware, I don't know whether all of you are from one organization or you come from different organizations. Is it an in-house or is it the mixed bread where you have officers coming from different ministries? Are all of us coming from one ministry or department?
No, not really.
So we are from different
Negative.
ministries.
Yeah.
Or we have one that has more people. Do you have one ministry that has more people than the others? Or we are equally represented?
Equally represented, sir.
Equally represented. Okay. So from wherever you are, or whichever department you are come from, I know you definitely understand what a budget is. But I've given a simple definition there that one, a budget is an itemized summary of estimated or intended expenditure for a given period, along with the provision for financing them. So it's a summary of expenditure. Yeah, that is what we call a budget. But of course, as a budget, you don't just highlight the items. You need to quantify them in monetary terms. That's why we are saying in the definition B there that it is a systematic plan for the expenditure of a usually fixed resource such as money or time during a given period of time. Is the total sum of money allocated for a particular purpose or a period of time. So it is an estimate of income and expenditure for a set period of time. So you can tie it up with the definition for training. To say that training, you want to model certain behavior. You want people to acquire certain skills, yeah, which can, which can change their way of doing things. So for you to do that, then there are activities. There are activities. And I think that is what Mr. Okoyo probably was also taking you through in the morning when you talk about training programs. Because when you are designing a training program, you're asking yourself, how do you train? What does training entail? For you to impact certain skills, there are certain activities that have to be done. We even talk about training methodologies, approaches. Whichever method you decide you are going to use, that method may require certain resources. Yeah. If, for instance, you say you are going to use experiential learning, for instance, as a methodology, it may require you to transport people from one point to another because it's experiential. When you say you want to use a case study entails collection of data, gathering of that data, analyzing that data, and coming up with conclusions. These are activities. And therefore, when you are developing a training budget, you must understand what processes are there, what activities. It is those activities that ultimately you are going to quantify in monetary terms. It is as simple as that. Of course, ultimately the budget will come in two aspects. On one aspect will be the activities themselves, and those activities entails utilization of certain resources. If like now you are moving participants from one point to another for a particular program, which is part of the training program, you must consider that activity. You may require a motor vehicle, you may require a bus, or whichever means you are going to use to transport them, and it must be budgeted for. So sometimes it is budgeting for activities or budgeting for items. Items may be like when you talk about, writing materials, tuition materials. There may be things like videos that you probably may want to use, or what you call, learning resources, flip chart, may require even certain things like laptops for certain specialized training. So these are the resources that you will be budgeting for. But as you can see in the budget, we also talk about expenditure, an estimate of both income and expenditure. Why income? Because income, if you are doing training for commercial purpose, you must also ask yourself, are we going to make adequate profit? And that profit will be determined by the income you are going to make from that activity. So sometimes, like us, Kenya School of Government, because there are we training really so much for commercial purposes, because this is a government department, and the amount of our charges is we only charge just enough money to ensure that there is a balance between expenditure and income, because we are not a profit-making organization. Even a government that does not expect us to make profit for it. We have a mandate as Kenya School of Government, and for that mandate, the government has given us also the green light to collect revenue so that we can be able to sustain our activities. So as you can see, we are not so much focused on profit, but we will still be preparing something called income and expenditure, just to highlight how much did we receive from our various activities, which are most of them are mainly 50%, almost 80%. Anyway, it's actually more than 80% is from training, but we also do consultancies and also research. So budget, when you talk of a budget, we also talk of it as an annual or other regular estimates of national revenue and expenditure, put forward by a finance, the amount of money needed or available for a particular purpose. In most cases, when you're talking about budget, and when the term budget comes, most of the time we are referring to the annual budget, which is a summation of all the activities that you're going to have in a particular year. And also a statement that helps you to reflect on what are going to be possible sources of income to finance those activities. Then we'll be talking of it as an annual budget. Why do I need a budget? This is a very simple question to ask, but very, very important for us. Training budget for short training helps you, not even for short training, sorry, I should even put it, let's say training budget for training courses helps you to do a number of things. One, it helps you to control your money. You have a plan of how you are going to utilize the money. You have been able to analyze your expenditure. You have analyzed your cost areas. And therefore, When it comes to use, you use on the basis of what you have already planned for. So it also helps you to monitor your expenses and income. Is a plan in advance of how much money you need to spend and how you can generate income to cover those expenses. So it helps you make decisions about your spending account for any funds you have received from a funding organization and complete. Sorry, there's something missing there. But I think the sentence is complete. Help you to make decisions about your spending account for any fund and you have received from a funding organization. So before you can prepare a budget, you need to prepare a training plan. The training plan helps you to make a correct estimate of the training expenses. As a school, we are always involved in this kind of training plans. If you come to the school, you will find Kenya School of Government, you will find we have a training plan for a whole year. It stipulates how many programs we are going to learn for various courses, which we know our clients need, and we have that kind of a plan. So with that training plan, then you're able to, like now, we have a program like this, TOT is a program. What does it require? How long is it going to take? How many participants will be involved? What is the cost per participant depending on the various modules? So a training plan helps you to identify all that. So it helps you to make correct estimate of the training expenses. And if you, of course, you have not done a training plan, you may refer to the module and develop a training plan. A module is what guides you into what the training entails. So once you have developed a training plan, you can then follow a number of steps, prepare a budget. You can identify the training expenses. In most cases, this involves marketing, because you need to market your program. As a school, there's an area that we have not been doing very well, but it's an area that is very important, where you market your programs. And marketing entails cost. Even like preparing a simple, what do you call this? What do you call this thing that we use to give to people to understand what you are doing or what is contained in a program? So anything, marketing, or even advertising in the radios or in the newspapers or in whichever mode you are going to use, that is a cost. Professional staff that you may need. You may be training in a highly specialized area. You need to know how much do the facilitators in such programs paid. That is a cost on what you're calling professional staff. Transport, you may be moving your participants from one point to another. Transport and traveling. There will be many other things that may be required in terms of raw materials to ensure that training becomes successful. There will be items of like equipment, tools. Yeah, sometimes you use certain tools. It could be organizing a program to train woodwork, for instance. So you need those tools that you use in woodwork or metalwork. Training materials are very essential. What are you going to use? Are you going to use books? What materials are you going to use? Are you using flip charts? Are you using laptops? Are you using desktop? What are you using? Training materials. How much is going to cost you for training venue? Are you using your own venue or are you going to hire one? If you are going to hire, what is the cost of hiring? Refreshments. Are there going to be refreshments? Things like water or other essential services which are in form of refreshment. And once you have identified your expenses items, you list them in the left-hand column of their budget format and appropriate. We are going to look at one. Actually, it's there. I was talking about the flyer, the one that I was missing. How many expense item? What is it that you need? How many do you need? This again will be determined by the number. That's why you need to have a training plan. How many have confirmed, for instance, attending to that training? What is the unit cost? And then ultimately, what is the total budget? The total budget, of course, is the product of quantity required multiplied by the unit cost, and then you get the total budget. So in calculating the budgeted expenses, determine the exact quantity required for each expense item and enter this into the budget format. Find the unit cost for each expense item and enter this into the budget format. 3 is calculate the cost for each expense item by multiplying the quantity required by the unit cost. And it is indicated there how you get the total budgeted expenses. That is on one side of the budget. The other side is where you now say, where then I'm going to get the revenue that we are going to use in making this training successful after you have already identified the cost. So income is any money that you receive, and potential sources of income for training costs may include what? Trainees' fees, like you have to pay for that training. Even this program we are running here, I'm very sure you have paid for it. Isn't it? Class president.
Yes, we have paid for.
You are paid for. Evans. How much?
Yes, we have.
How much have you paid for this program?
31,320 shillings.
Yes, 31,000. Let's say it's around 31,000. Yes. Let's give it a flat figure of that 1,000. So you can be able to easily generate how much as a cost. If you are like 20 participants, that would tell you that the program would have given us a revenue of 30,000 times 20 participants, which is about 600,000. So that is the revenue, which comes in form of trainees' fee. Yeah, trainees' fee. There could be other sources of income. You can sell product. If like we had a manual for this program, we can also sell it to you people. And from it, it becomes a source of income to the school. You may have also sponsors. These sponsors are not the one that we commonly refer to them in Kenya. In Kenya, when you hear sponsors, people have a funny way of defining sponsors. But the sponsors I'm talking about here are donors who are willing to support the program. And they can sponsor you, they can give you some grants, can give you some donations, even though the donation is already given there. But we are saying people who are willing to support that program financially. And I think the sponsors and the donations, to me, are more or less the same. Because a sponsor is somebody who is willing to pay some money for certain activities within a program. We may have donors, of course, which is more of, organizations or development partners who are willing to donate certain money for that program. or other funding organizations. So then by the end of it, or then you'll ask, how much income do you need? Income should at least cover your expenses. So that's the first thing that you must ensure. But how much, when you are balancing between your expenditure and your income, that the amount of money you are going to get in form of income to finance the activities that are there in the training must always be at par. How do I calculate the total budget income? The first one, again, is enter your source of income. So there could be many types. Then you calculate the income for each, then a total, this amount to determine the total budgeted income. So that is an example. You can have trainees fees, and then you can have income per income source. This is the amount of money you are going to get from training fee, the number of trainees. So this will determine how much. We have sponsors, name of the organization. We have sale of product. Like here you have an example of a number of items. Maybe 70 number multiplied by the price per item, and you get the total amount of money you can be able to get from that source. And also get money from donations and other funding organizations. So with that, then you can also be able to calculate your budgeted profit, which is the difference between the cost and the revenue. And you should be able to continuously monitor your budget, because once you've started activities, remember the budget was an estimate. Of course, you have to try your best to ensure that there is that balance between expenditure and income. But along the way, prices may change. And that can, in a way, shoot off your budget. So you must continuously monitor the budget. You must keep accurate record of all income and expenses. If you receive money from trainees or sell product or services to pay for a training course, you need to keep good record. In this case, you may be probably required to have a receipt or something like that. Have trainees sign an attendance sheet as an evidence they have paid. Keep the bank deposit slip as a record that you banked this money. And of course, the same with expenses. When you spend money, you must keep the original of all receipts and invoices. Have this paperwork makes it easier to add up all the money you have spent and check it off against the budget. I think this is more of a repetition. But this is a list of the income. The income item, the receipt number, the actual quantity, the unit price, actual income, budgeted income. I think that should have been joined with the other one. Then you compare actual and budgeted amount. This is just an example. I don't think it's very relevant here. But you may find that you had an example of budgeted to make a profit of 85K, maybe in shillings or dollars or whatever, but you made a loss of 8. Why can that happen? Income was less than budgeted. Sales were lower than budgeted. Expenses were more than expected. All these can lead to that loss. Some equipment had to be purchased rather than borrowed. That is why you need to ultimately analyze your budget so that you are able to see This is what we had budgeted. This is what we incurred. And what is the difference? So how do you prevent that in future? Ensure that costs don't exceed the budgeted expenses. Don't buy things you haven't budgeted for. Get written quotations for all items you need to purchase so that you know in advance exactly what you will have to pay for those items. There is something called acquisto. Acquisto is the submission of all the necessary documentations with the details of income and expenses. So it's like surrendering. After you have run the program for a month or 2 or 3 months or even for a year, by the end of it all, you must submit all the necessary documents. So if you spend money, you must, of course, you definitely must have spent money on various activities. There must be a clear list of what was acquired, how much it costed. That evidence is what we are saying is very important. So is account for how their money was spent. So for acquittal, you must submit original receipts and invoices as evidence of income and expenses, record of all income and expense items with invoices numbers, original receipts and invoices. So I'm concluding that one, a training budget is an essential step when planning a training course. Without a budget, it is difficult to control income and expenses and ensure that cost of training are covered. If you are establishing yourself as a training provider, you need to make profit, and this is the only way to run such a business. If you are applying for funds from external sources to run your training course, you will need a training budget to show how you are going to spend the money. I say this, of course, knowing very well that depending on where you come from and the organization you work for, you must also be well aligned with the budget process within that organization so that you know the budget cycle. At what time are you going to make a requisition? At what time are you supposed to submit your estimate for all the items, so that you understand that, so that if you are the one in charge of training, whoever is in charge of finance, at one time you'll be requesting you to provide estimate, which he is using to consolidate with many other costs to come up with one budget, because training may just be one part of the component of that organization. And therefore, understanding the budget cycle which that organization uses, if it is a government department, then you need to understand all the steps in the budgeting making process in government. You will require to know that every year, like when you are doing a planning, government plans for a whole year, starting from August all the way to June, when the budget are submitted for appropriation. And there are critical stages. At the initial stages, there will be work plans that have to be developed. This work plans will be the one to determine the annual work plan. The annual work plan is part of what will be captured when you are also developing what we call the annual development plan. And that has to be done early enough for other forms of approval. So when we are talking about this budget, we are not talking of it without cognizance of the fact that there is a general budget process which is part of what you determine at what time, for instance, are you going to make your estimates available so that they can be captured and be consolidated into a budget. So I didn't want to use that route, because by using that route, I'm looking at the budget process at a macro level rather than at a micro level. I just wanted to narrow down to just say, what do you need? Because you may be asked, you could be in charge of a training program or a training activity in your organization, and you've just been asked by whoever, could be the boss or the management, to prepare a simple training budget. For me, then, I will just be asking myself, what activities do we have? Again, it's also good for me also to mention this, because you may be in charge of a training program within an organization. Currently, the budgeting format that is being used in government is one that requires that your budget must be program based. So by being program based is to say that you must identify what you want to achieve through this training program, so that you're able to identify the goals of the training, the objectives that you will have to meet so that you are able to achieve that goal. And that is what ultimately will determine your budget items. So the program-based budgeting is a whole framework which enables you to see through from what you are going to achieve, the end product, and what you need to put as input. So that it is the one that you determine, for instance, if you want to train so many, you have to justify that. Why so many? You have to justify why probably you have to use specialized method that may be more expensive than the normal methods of training, because there are certain objectives that probably you are trying to meet in that. So within the program-based budgeting, then you are able to do that. And the program starts at the very initial stage. You will identify the goal. Then you fight from the goal. You say the training goal is this. In most cases, like what you have been talking about, you are imparting new skills. There could be gaps that have been identified, or all those. Then you say, this is our goal. But then you say, for us to achieve this goal, we must develop specific objectives. Then you identify the specific objectives. Then you say, for us to meet these specific objectives, we must have this in terms of output. So then you are able to identify the output. Then you are going down there now and asking, for us to achieve this output, what do we need? Again, we go back to where we started. We need two things. One, input. These are input. Like when you talk about things like computers, motor vehicles, buildings, houses, all these kind of things. So those are input. Then you say, the other things are activities. Our training program will entail these activities. That is another cost. So then that becomes now the basis under which you are going to do your budget, on input and on activities. And it is at that point then you are going to identify, if it is the input, how many inputs do we need? Like you are training people on something like you want to train them to become truck drivers or tractor drivers, or these heavy machineries that are used. You may be required to buy a tractor itself. That tractor becomes now the tool or the equipment you are going to use to train. Like when you go to these driving schools, if you are starting a driving school as a program, you will be required to buy motor vehicles that are going to be used. Those motor vehicles now are not for transport. They're not for use other things. They are too. They are a learning resource. So if that's what you need, you will say, how many do we need? How many people are you training? We are training, or we are targeting to train 100 people. How many motor vehicles do they require as a resource? They could be 10, they could be 15, they could be 20. Of course, they cannot be so many. Then you go now, what is the cost per item of this? What kind of vehicles are you buying? How much is it like to cost one? So you simply multiply the vehicle, the number of vehicle, times the cost, sometimes the average cost. But like we have said, for you to enhance the accuracy of your budget, it's good you ask for a quotation. A quotation will tell you this is what will cost you. Sometimes you call them pro forma invoices. You can ask for a pro forma invoice. Can we get a pro forma invoice on this item? We need so many photocopying machines of this model. Probably you have, you have been in touch with the user department, and they have advised you that we need this number of photocopy machines, so that you don't just put a figure for the sake of it, and that will affect your effectiveness as a developer of a budget. Then you say, who sells this photocopy machine? We have this company. Which are the best? Already you have been given the best by the user department. Then you just ask that company, can you send us a pro forma invoice for this kind of photocopy machine? So when you are putting it as an item in the budget, that item, the price is more closer to what you will require. So that is very, very important, very important, so that you have accurate figures. The other thing that also affects these processes, in most cases, has a lot to do with fluctuations that comes, price fluctuations, and also the risk aspect. It also affects your budget. Risk is that there is a possibility of what you have planned, and there are many risks. Like even fluctuation of prices can be a risk. Yeah. Like you are planning to, you are going to use fuel, for instance, at a period when there is a little bit of some inflation. You may have costed that you are going to use fuel worth 1,000 liters, of petrol, for instance, for moving participants from one point to another. You have calculated it at a price of, let's say, 120 per liter. But within the next 3-4 months, that price has moved from 120. The price now is 130, an increase of 10 shillings per liter. That will ultimately affect your price. How do you handle risks that are associated with fluctuations of prices for goods and services? As a good person, as a good budgeter, or somebody who understands the budgeting process, you must know how to cater for risks. And it is very simple. Looking at the history, you look at the history. What has been the fluctuations in the past? Could be like in the 5 years. Now incorporate that. You input that when you are estimating your cost. You can do what we call a scenario analysis. A scenario analysis is to say, these are the possible scenarios. The price of fuel can be affected under the following scenario situations. The global market will remain constant. The global price will go high. The global market can go down from the history. Then you ask yourself, what are the probability of this happening, that happening, and that happening? When you put all those scenarios, then you ask, okay, what is the possibility? You can be able to attach those possibility of those scenarios. And then you are able now to calculate now based on all that. And then you're able to get the most likely scenario. So that the price you put in the budget is one that is very high likely to be the actual price when you incur that cost. A bit of that helps you to avoid the situations where you have budgets that are not in line with what you expect. And therefore you have a budget, but a budget that is not effective. It's not giving you the true reality of the situation. So all these are things that you must, of course, be aware about as you do your budgeting. But a simple budget is simply identifying the number you need in terms of input, the cost that is driven by activities, the combination of the two, and then based on what you expect in terms of the numbers, because numbers also you drive that cost, so that if you planning for 100 people, 200 people, the higher the number, the higher the cost. Because remember, the budget is one, the item required, the definition of the item, the quantity required, and three, the cost per unit in the total. So you can see one factor is the quantity. How many are you going to train? The other subject is cost per unit. And that's what I'm saying. It can actually differ. It can change with time. And that's why you have to put in a system where you can be able to really quantify those risks. You can look at the history. History never lies. The last 5 years. But of course, always when you do a training budget, don't be surprised with surprises. Surprises can always be there. And you must also be very conversant with the environment and the scenario and the situations. You have to also to be a bit flexible. What do I mean by flexibility? And when like now you are budgeting, you can become so fixed. I imagine like you have also at a certain level to also understand where things like where is the training likely to take place and how are the costs likely to vary because of a very good example. If you are training in Mombasa, what are some of the items that may be more critical? And like now, if you are talking about a training in Mombasa, for instance, the weather there is not very, it's a bit warm. So you may find that could be you have had, before you had a training, probably in Nairobi, for instance. Nairobi is a bit cool. So the amount of water you may need in Nairobi may not be the same as what you may require in Mombasa. So you can see by just changing the venue of the training, already the budget has been affected. Because in Mombasa, you may find that people require at least a minimum of 2 bottles of water. In Nairobi, you may just need 1. So these are the simple things that I'm saying are very, very important when you are developing a training budget. You must even be very keen on who are you training. Different participants may come with different training requirements and needs. If you are training really all the people, or what we call senior people, their demands may be a bit unique. Like some of you may have seen, we put some sweets on the table. Sometimes people think that those sweets are just to make people happy when they chew them and all that. That's not the case. Those sweets you find being put in the table is taken cognizant of certain unique needs of the participants. You may have participants who are diabetic. Sometimes their level of energies will go very down. They need something that. Yeah. So when you are training adults, it's not like training young people. Sometimes the adults, very senior people, comes with very unique needs. Yeah. So the element of diversity. So what I'm saying is that budgeting is not just budgeting. Budgeting is not just saying that we have this number of units and this is how much per unit you require. It requires you to put yourself into that real scenario. Where is the training going to take place? Who are we training? What are their special needs? Sometimes we even like now call participants and we require the participant to give their profile. You may find that you have one participant who is has some hearing impairment or hard to hear. He or she requires some special attention in terms of certain things. Or somebody who doesn't see has problem. It's a special need. So you may require them to also understand that if you have invited them and you did not say that we don't want anybody with these and these conditions. Just like even when you are considering the kind of meals they are going to take. You may just have talked about standard food. But when you go to specific training for specific groups of people, you may find that they have very unique needs, and these things must be captured. So, ladies and gentlemen, my point here, and I don't think I'm taking too much of your time in explaining this, is that the budgeting for training requires you to be very well aligned with the nature of the training, the unique requirement, yeah, so that ultimately you can come up with a very, very realistic and objective budget. And you can suffer from two things. Either you budget, and when you have budgeted for your training programs, ultimately you can suffer from either two things. One is where you have so many activities and you are not able to fully implement them because the budget was in deficit. That has a lot to do with your lack of thoroughness in identifying the various needs. And sometimes the possibility of also having fluctuations, sources of income, like when you're in government, that can cause that. So you try to control what you can. Be very realistic when you are identifying the cost. Be objective. Don't expect too much if you have no history of getting that too much. So that you don't have a situation where you have so many activities you have planned, but you're not able to do. The other possible challenge that you can also have in a training budget is where you have excess money left. That means you had over budgeted. Either way, it is not ideal. When you are the budget, you are not a good, you've not done very well. When you over budget, you have not done well. Because if you had put too much money and you are not able to consume it, you are not able to utilize the whole of it, then we still question your ability to do good budgeting. Either you overstated your activities, you overstated your prices, and that can give room to misappropriation or idle money. See, once you have been given a fund to finance your activities for a whole year, then by the end of the year, you are being required to return part of the money. That shows that probably you are not a very effective manager of your activities. So either way, don't be so proud that I have done a whole year budget. I even have a surplus. it is still a reflection of inefficiency on your side as a manager when you cannot be able to fully absorb the budget that has been allocated to you. You'll still be considered as inefficient. And even on the other side, if you have budgeted for so many activities, then you find out only done 50%, somebody will be asking, hadn't you been keen to balance between the activities and the income you have? Again, you are an inefficient manager. So you must balance all that so that when you have your activities, you balance them with your income, and you are able now to say, we have run our activities, we have met our goals, we have met our objectives, and we have been able to maintain our activities within the level of our budget. Then you say, that's good. That's a good manager. I want to invite you to raise any questions. I've talked so much, so it is your chance to ask any questions, or you can also raise any comment. And again, just like the budgeting, which we have been talking about, under budgeting, over budgeting, I can see we are only 12 out of 19. So I don't know whether that is how this class has been attending, because class president, if you have a 5 days training like this, and you are only having 12 out of 17 on various classes, that may just mean that those people, we need to know them, and then we may just not consider giving them certificates. Because when we give you a 5 days program, we are expecting 100% attendance. So if you are attending 12 out of 19, 7 are not there for the whole day. Those 7 do not qualify to get the certificate. Is that okay, Mr. President? Are you present?
Yes, I'm present, sir.
That is Peter or Yusuf?
Yes, I'm Peter, and sir, I think there could be some clarification that should be made. I think most of the people who are in this group, not most of them are students, and some of them are staff members who are providing support in one way or the other. So we cannot clearly tell who are the. We were not given details as at who are the staff members giving support, and who should be the students who should be attending the class, because this is basically how we've been attending this class. Of course, we have people, we were told by our coordinator, that are supporting the class in a technical way from KSG Nairobi.
Yeah, I'm just saying this because if you are the class president,
yes,
you are supposed to know your members.
I know
So
my
that
members
even when
from
you come
the
and
normal.
check like this, you can say, I can see there is Anjoroge, I can see Ike, I can see Evans, Giambo, I can see Bogwa, I can see Masse, I can see Paris, I can see Peter. Of course, I know there is a recording that is always being done, but what mine was just a comment anyway, because there is a course program coordinator, I think Madam Jacqueline. But I'm just saying, when we have a class and we are told that it is 17, 18 people, and then I see there are only about 12, my fear is that there are people who may come and graduate in this class, but they have not met the requirement of this program.
I agree with you.
Are you getting Peter? Because the
I
requirement.
agree with you because.
Yeah.
I agree with you because I know that it's.
I should talk to my course coordinator now, and I tell her, Jacqueline, I had a class of 12 out of 17. So I need her to know whether the other number had also attended the class morning, or whether they will be, because now this is a class between 9 and 1. So if they have missed this
Yes.
whole day, Peter, it means that those people have already missed. And this is a is it a 5 days program?
No, it's
Peter?
a 2 weeks. It's a 10 days program. It's a 10 days
It's a
program.
10 days program. So if they have okay.
Yes.
Yeah, but of course I understand the online programs have its own unique issues. I don't want to threaten that we are not going to certify others. I was just concerned that probably the number is below what probably you would expect. Sometimes we would expect, like if you have 2 or 3 members not being present, that one is there could be some reasons, specific reasons. But if the class has been running 11, 12, 10, then there's, of course, some concern there, whether the people who are attending this program really, whether all of them are meeting that. Because remember, ultimately, we will give you a certificate saying that Madam Anne Joroge attended a TOT program online for 10 days. You know, we don't want to be saying that we are saying what is not the truth. If you go and you are doing some training somewhere and then somebody asks, I thought you said you went for a TOT at Kenya School of Government, but I can see there are certain mistakes that you have made. I don't expect those mistakes to come from somebody who has attended a TOT. Then already that person is questioning the
integrity of the school.
Yes, integrity of our certificate. You understand, Peter, my concern?
Yes.
Okay.
But
so
I can assure you that this will be addressed by today, end of today. We shall address the issue with the coordinator. Because on record we only have one absenteeism. The rest actually has no. The rest of the people have not informed us of their whereabouts. But we are going to follow up on that.
And they are supposed to inform the class president, especially because the class president is the president of the class. By the way, he has more powers than us. You know, we are just coming and facilitating 2 hours and thereafter we go. But the class president is there. And as a school, we give a lot of weight to the class president, so that he also becomes like part of us. So when he is in the class, he takes charge, and he has authority, Peter, so that you can even tell these people, if you don't attend, then I can as well also give that information to the coordinator who may not have actually logged in. But I know they are being recorded anyway. So I'm just saying that
this is a very disciplined group, and if there are any inadequacies, is just temporary, and we are going to address it as soon as possible.
Thank you, Peter, for your assurance. Any comment from any member?
You're welcome.
Or any question of any kind?
Mr. Tuku, Evans Ojambo here. I want to thank you for your very energetic presentation.
Yes, who is speaking?
Evans Ojambo here.
Yes, Evans.
Yes.
Thank you for the kind remarks.
Asante.
Yeah, and I hope this training, Deventry, will help you to become better facilitators of adult training, because that is exactly what it is meant to do. Any other comment or any other question? Then, in absence of any, Mr. President, then I can wish you all the best as you proceed with your program. I don't think I'm going to meet this class probably later any other time, because I had only been allocated that one class. But I also take this opportunity to really thank you for being good listeners, and wish you all the best as you continue with your other programs. All the best.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you, sir. Have a nice time. We really appreciate your presentation. And we are always available online. You can have our contacts. You have the permission to have our contacts, and we shall contact you personally or individually, and you're also open, welcome to do the same to every other person in the group.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Peter.
You're welcome.
All the best.
Okay, good day.
Good day.